everybody, it's the War Hipster here, coming at you with another Contrast Plus painting tutorial, and today we are painting the incredible Eternus Blade of the First Prince. Yes. Oh, I've been so excited for this miniature. I think it looks absolutely amazing. It's one of the best I've ever seen in my entire life. I think it's an absolutely fantastic model. And we're going to be painting it up for you today because it was sent to me early by Games Workshop to build up and paint and review for all of you. So a massive thank you to them for doing that. And, well, we're going to jump in and we're going to start painting him. He has been primed in Grey Seer. And the colour we're going to be using first is Black Legion. And we're going to be applying this all over the top of all of the horse's flesh, or the demonic mount's flesh. So we're just going to start under here, which might seem like a pretty weird place to start, but it is one of the widest available options. Now we're going to be painting this all over the skin, but we're just going to, when we get to the tail, we're going to come up to here where the kind of spike starts, and we're just going to stop there just for the moment. We're also not going to paint any of the fur, just under there that you can see. It's kind of like a saddle blanket. And we're not going to be painting the hooves or the claws, but otherwise we're going to get this all over. So with that Black Legion all applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Shyish Purple and we're going to apply this over the tail spike, but we are also going to blend it out. So we're going to take that Shyish Purple and we're going to load up our brush, and we're just going to start in the black and then move on to the tail spike. So we're going to start around about here, and we're just going to apply the Shyish Purple like this, nice and quickly, over the top of the whole tail spike, like that. Then we're going to wash the brush, and then at the tip of this tail spike, we're just going to remove some of that Shyish Purple up to around about 2 spikes from the end. And we don't really need to worry about doing it on the tail, but you can if you want to. Just like that. And we're going to do that on both sides. So with that done on the tail, both sides, you won't really be able to see it on the camera, you just about see it there. What we're now going to do is we're going to do that exact same process on all of the claws, but not on the hooves. So we take the Shyish Purple once again, and we just pick a claw to start on. I'm going to start on this one just here. So we're just going to all over the claw, like that, wash the brush, and then we just clean it off. Like that. Same again on the other side. Like that sort of thing. So with that now done, whilst we're just waiting for it to dry, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Dreadful Visage. I'm going to apply this over the top of the hooves. So with that done, just whilst we're waiting for the purple and the dreadful visage to dry, what we're going to do is we're going to work on his head horn. So we've got a horn here, and we've got that horn just there as well. Now we're going to be using two colours to do this, Gryph-Charger Grey and Black Templar. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with Gryph-Charger Grey, and we're going to apply this over the top of the horn. Nice and simple, just like that sort of thing. Then we're going to wash the brush, grab some Black Templar, and then around about a third of the bottom we're going to add the Black Templar. Like that. We're then going to wash the brush, grab a little bit more Gryph-Charger Grey, then we're going to smooth the two colours together. Just like that. We're looking to just not have too much dark paint in the recesses here. So just use a clean brush to just mop it up. And that sort of thing. We're going to do this on both sides of the horns, so we're going to do the inside as well, and we're going to do the exact same thing on that one, the unicorn horn. So with those horns now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Sigvald Burgundy, and we're going to apply this to the inside of the demonic mount's mouth. Namely his tongue. It doesn't matter if you get this on the teeth. As you can see, I've applied that Sigvald Burgundy all over the inside of the mouth, but also over the teeth, just so it was all of the same colour. They're not going to stay Sigvald Burgundy, but don't worry about that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some Ratling Grime, and we're going to apply this over our final area that needs base coating for now, and that is going to be the fur of the saddle blanket. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to add some shades to the model. It seems weird, I know, but trust me. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some Targor Rageshade, and we're going to apply this over the top of our purple claws. I thought I was going to cough then. So we're going to apply this over the top of the tail spike, like that. And on the inside as well. Mustn't forget about the inside. We're going to apply this over the top of the hooves. As well. And over the front claws. And then next up, we're going to take some Nuln Oil. I'm going to apply this over the top of the horns at the top here. So with that Nuln Oil applied, we're then going to take some Agrax Earthshade and we're going to apply this over the top of the black flesh. Just like that, and we're going to avoid the hair. So with that Agrax Earthshade applied all over, what we're then going to do is take some Druchii Violet. I'm going to apply this over the top of the tongue and the inside of its mount. Of the mount's mouth. Good lord. So with that done, we're going to leave the demonic steed alone just for the moment, because what we're going to do is move on to the rest of the steed's armour. Now, the colour we're going to be using first is Warplock Bronze, and we're going to be applying this all over the kind of, well, it's going to eventually be really bright, warm, lovely bronze. However, we're going to do this in a couple of thin coats because Warplock Bronze is a somewhat unpredictable paint. So we're just going to get this all over the flat parts. Of all the armour, it's going to take a couple of really nice thin coats. So after 2 layers of Warplock Bronze, you should have this beautifully shiny dark bronze armour. Now what we're going to do is we're going to brighten it right back up. And we're going to be using some thinned down brass scorpion to do this. And we're just going to apply this all over the top, avoiding any of the recesses. So you see we've got that little nick just there. So we're just going to be avoiding that. Just like this. So with that done, you should now have some beautifully shiny brass with some really gorgeous dark recesses. However, what we're going to do now is we're going to add a little bit of rosiness in there. And we're going to take some Reikland Fleshshade. We don't want very much on our brush as we do this. And we're going to just add this as like a very thin shade over the top. Just like that. So with that Reikland Fleshshade all applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Iron Warriors and we're going to apply this over pretty much all of the remaining metallic details on the steed. This is mostly trim. So with all that Iron Warriors applied, as you can see, the model is starting to take shape. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pop back to the brass just for a second, and we're going to take a roughly 2-to-1 mix of Brass Scorpion and Skullcrusher Brass. And we're going to be applying this over kind of the most outward facing areas. These are the areas we want to be really shiny. So we're just going to be applying this, for example, just around this kind of section here. You see how that already returns a whole bunch of shine. Just like that sort of thing. This is kind of mostly just going to be for the large armor panels. So with that now done, we've got beautiful shiny brass on the main armor, and that's exactly the color we want. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some shading to all of the silver. Now we want the heaviest possible shading that we can get without completely dominating that color. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a roughly 4 parts contrast medium to 1 part black Templar mix, and we're going to apply this all over the top. Now if you want this to be heavier, just take a little less contrast medium. We want very, very, very clear definition in all of that Iron Warriors. And so with that black Templar shading applied, all that silver's looking pretty fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of finish off the base coats here on our demonic mount, and we're going to take some Cygor Brown and we're going to apply this over the top of all of the leather. And so with Cygor Brown now applied to all of the leather details, we're going to take some Skeleton Horde and we're going to apply this over the top of the skulls. And so finally, we're going to take some Dawnstone. I'm going to use this to relayer the teeth. And so with Dawnstone now applied to those teeth, what we're going to do is move on, because the mount is now what I would call a War Hipster battle ready. It's looking pretty awesome. And it's a little bit beyond battle ready, of course, but we're going to move on now to Eternus himself. Now the first colour we're going to be using is Iron Hand Steel. And we're going to be applying this over the top of all of Eternus's armour. This isn't all of his silver details, because he's got some more. We're going to be applying this over the top of all of the plate armour. Just like this. So with that Iron Hand Steel applied to all of his plate armour, what we're going to do, just before we finish off kind of applying base coat metallics, is we're going to take some Shyish Purple and we're going to apply this over the top of the back banners. That's because we've got a little bit of kind of this purple colour that's going to be in and amongst the metallic, but it's a little bit easier rather than trying to get the purple in there afterwards. So we're just going to apply the Shyish Purple like this. And so with that Shyish Purple applied, we then take some Volupus Pink and we apply this over the top. So with that done, what we can now do is take some thinned down Iron Warriors, and we can use this to paint in the rest of the silver details. So this is going to include the chain reins. It's going to include all of the chain mail that he's wearing. It's going to include the flail, the halberd, and the stirrups. And we're also going to paint in the spikes. Just like this. So with all of that Iron Warriors applied, what we're going to do now is we're going to take some thinned down Retributor Armour, and we're going to apply this to all of the gold details. Now this is going to include all the trim, across all of the armour and all of the weapons. So with that now done, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Cygor Brown and we're going to apply this to all of Eternus's leather. So this is going to include these belts and straps back here, the wrap on the halberd, So with that Cygor Brown applied, we're then going to take some Skeleton Horde and we're going to apply this over these skulls now. So with that Skeleton Horde applied to the skulls, what we're then going to do is take some Gryph-Charger Grey and I'm going to apply this over the top of this poor chap's face. And with that Gryph-Charger Grey applied, we then take some Black Templar and we apply this over the top of the hair. And with that Black Templar on, we then take some Shyish Purple and we apply this to the tongue. And finally, we're going to take some Retributor Armour. We're going to apply this over the top of the crown. So with that, all of our base coats are now on Eternus and his mount, and he's looking pretty cool. However, we're now going to move on to the next step, which is going to be to add some shades. Now, there's a couple of different layers and stages that we're going to be going through here. And the first one is going to be Targor Rageshade. And this is the easiest one because we're just going to be applying this over the top of all the silver and all of the gold. This is just on Eternus. We don't need to do anything to the mount. So with Targor Rageshade applied all over, as mentioned, there is a number of layers here that we're going to be doing. So the first one is going to be some Black Templar, and we're going to be applying this over the kind of the runic section of the blade. So with Black Templar applied to the runic flat section of that halberd, we're then going to take some Nuln Oil and we're going to apply this over the top of the flat plate armour. Just going to strengthen up those recesses just a little bit. And so with that Nuln Oil applied to the flat plate armour, we're then going to take some Reikland Fleshshade and we're going to apply this over the top of the gold. So with all of that shading applied, Eternus, the blade of the first prince, is now what I would call a war hipster battle ready. I mean, he's a little beyond that, of course, but that's where we are. He looks fantastic. However, we're not going to leave him there. No, we're going to take him to the next level, and we're going to start this off by doing some layers. Now, the first one is going to be some Iron Hand Steel, and we're going to be using this to relayer all of the flat plate armor. Just the flat plate armor. We're just going to avoid any recesses and anywhere that Targor Rageshade and the Nuln Oil has really settled. So with that Iron Hand Steel applied to all of the flat plate armor, as you can see, it's nice and shiny now, looking fantastic. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some thinned down Leadbelcher, and we're going to use this to basically highlight everywhere that we haven't done. So this is the kind of the chainmail, that's the word I'm looking for, the chains and things here, for example. We're going to use this to highlight the halberd blade. We're going to use this to highlight these spikes on the back here. We're going to use this to highlight all of the trim on the mount. Basically, we're going to be using a lot of Leadbelcher here, and it's going to take a little while. So just pick a place to start and start highlighting. So I'm just going to start just here. Around the face. So with those Leadbelcher highlights applied to all of that silver, as you can see, he's really starting to come together. He's looking absolutely fantastic. However, we're not done with the silver. No, not even close. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some Ironbreaker next, and we're now going to apply this over the flats of the armor panels, but towards the upward facing areas. So just for example here on this kind of bladed part of the knee, we're just going to take the Ironbreaker. I'm going to apply this over the top, just like that. Then on the knee pad, just here, I'm just going to apply this kind of towards the top half, like that sort of thing. Same here on this kind of little underside, like that, just going a little bit. And then on the shoulder, we're going to apply the Ironbreaker towards the top. The top part like that. Same for areas such as the shield. Shield? Helmet. There is no shield. So just there. And just there. As you can see, those sections now really start to catch the light. It starts to look awesome. Same for this upturned boot. Just there like that. Now on the rest of him, what we're going to do is we're going to use the Ironbreaker on the sharpest kind of points. So kind of little corners and things and top edges and stuff like that. So for example there across that armor, here as well. Goes across the top link of the chain. Like that. And then finally, on the halberd blade, we're going to do quite a chunky highlight of Ironbreaker going along the cutting edge. And so with that Ironbreaker all applied, we're then going to take some Stormhost Silver, and we're going to use this as our little spot highlight on all of the silver. Just picking out the corners like that, for example, just there. We're going to pick out the entirety of the cutting edge of this blade. Now that sort of thing. And we're just going to add a few little highlights here and here. Just like this. So with that Stormhost Silver applied, all of the silver is now done at long last. It's looking pretty awesome. Gorgeous and shiny. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to move on. And we're going to move on to the gold. Now the colour we're going to be using to highlight this first is Liberator Gold. We're just going to pick a place to start. And we're just going to start picking out all of the edges. Just like this. So with that Liberator Gold applied to all of our gold details. What we're now going to do is we're going to take some Canoptek Alloy, and we're going to use this to pick out the sharpest points on the gold. Like that sort of thing. But what we're also going to do is we're going to use this to highlight the brass. And we're just picking out hard edges here. So for example, the ones by those nicks and scrapes in the armour. So with that done, all of our metallics are finished for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to highlighting the rest of our details that we haven't done yet. And we're going to start with the Gryph-Charger Grey and Black Templar horns. And the colour we're going to be using to highlight these is Ulthuan Grey. So with that done, I also applied that Ulthuan Grey to the teeth, as you can see just there, because it seemed appropriate and it looks cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to now take some pink horror, and we're going to use this to highlight the tongue and the lips. So there's this little line that goes underneath all the teeth. So with that pink horror all applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to take some Skavenblight Dinge, and we're going to use this to highlight the mount's flesh, all of the black. So with that Skavenblight Dinge applied, as you can see, all over all of the black flesh and hair, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Slaanesh Grey, and we're going to use this as our little spot highlight just on the sharpest points. Of all the flesh and on top of the hair. So we're just going to add this to the kind of tips of the hair. Like that sort of thing. And then on the tail spike, we're going to use this Slaanesh Grey to highlight it. Like that. And we're going to do the same thing on the claws. And so with that Slaanesh Grey applied, we're then going to take some Pallid Witch Flesh, and we're going to apply this to the sharpest points on our claws and on the tail spike. So we just want to do a very, very narrow highlight here. like that sort of thing. And then similarly on our claws. Like that. So with that done, all of the claws are finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some thin down Ushabti bone, and we're going to use this to relayer the skulls. And so with that Ushabti bone applied, we then take some Screaming Skull. I'm going to use this to highlight the skulls. So with that done, all of the skulls are now finished. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on that back banner, and there's not a lot that we're going to do at this juncture because we've got some runes to do later. What we are going to do is we're going to take some corn red here, and we're going to apply this as a kind of relayer over the top of the flat sections of the banners, just avoiding the recesses. Just like this. So with that done, Eternus, Blade of the First Prince, is now finished. Except he's not, because he's definitely not. So we've got that kind of verdigris stuff left to do. We've got some runes to do on those back banners, and we've got some glowing blue runes and eyes and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on the glowing blue first, then the verdigris, and then we will do those runes and then inevitably finish off those back banners. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take some Corax white, and we're going to thin it down a little bit more than we would normally, sort of 2 or 3 parts water, and we're going to take this and we're going to use this for the glowing blue sections. So the glowing blue sections are going to include Eternus's eyes, so we're just going to drop the Corax white in there. Like that. We can do it on the other one as well. The reason we've got it so thinned down is so that it kind of fills up the area, and then it will dry much smoother. But it does mean that we kind of get this little bit of an overlap naturally, which is kind of what we want because we want it to glow. So we're going to do this over the top of these eyes as well. Again, just dropping this in. You just want to fill up the space. Like that. We're going to do this over the mount's eyes like that. And like that. We're going to drop this into the runes on the halberd. Like that sort of thing. And the last bit is there's two tiny little eyes just in here on his chest. Like that. So with all of that Corax white applied, what we're then going to do is take some Talassar Blue and we're going to drop this over the top. And so with that Talassar Blue all applied, what we then do is we take some thinned down Baharroth Blue and we're going to use this to add that kind of glow. So what we're going to do here is on this eye, we're just going to pick out the eyeball itself like that. And like that. Add a little bit more in here. Like so. Same deal on the mount. It's a little bit too much Baharroth Blue there. Like that. And the trickiest one is Eternus's eyes, because we just want to add a little dot right in the middle. Like that. Around the runes up here, we're just going to highlight the sharpest points around them. So with that Baharroth Blue applied, if you're feeling extra fancy, what you can do is you can take a little tiny bit of Blue Horror, and you can add this over the top. So with that done, all of the blue glowiness is now finished. It looks pretty awesome. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some Sotek Green and we're going to thin it down with like 10 or 11 parts water. We want it to be really, really, really thin. And basically we kind of want it to look kind of sort of like that sort of consistency. Like that. Help if I did it on camera. If I do it over the top of my fingernail, you want it to be like that sort of thing. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take this super thin Sotek Green and we're now going to add that verdigris effect that is all over all of the horse's armour. So we're just going to pick a place to start, and I'm going to start just here. And what we're going to do is we're essentially going to now glaze up this Sotek Green in all of the recesses of the bronze. Now it's going to take sort of 2 or 3 layers here. So just take your time. And then once that's done, we'll come back. So after 3 layers of that Sotek Green, building it up in the recesses, you should have a Eternus that's looking somewhat like this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some Baharroth Blue, but we're going to thin it down with sort of 10 parts water. So it's really, really runny. As you can see here on my thumb. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go over the top. I'm going to keep going until we get it as nice and bright as we like. But what we're going to do is we're going to try and stick closer to the recesses. Just like this. So after a single go over with the Baharroth Blue, as you can see, he's looking pretty close. However, we are just going to do one more pass around. So with that done, finally, Eternus is starting to look absolutely fantastic. Oh my goodness, I absolutely adore this model. Right, we just got one last thing left to do, and that is to just finish off these banners. And to do this, we're going to add some runes. Now I recommend having the box art open in front of you, or at least the product photography, to kind of figure out which ones are which and where to place them. But essentially the colour we're going to be using for this is Slaanesh Grey. And what we want to do is we want to start off by adding our first rune. Just here. Like that. The key, as ever with these things, is just to take it really steady. Take it a line at a time. So the first one goes there. And the next one goes on this flat chappy. So with those Slaanesh Grey runes applied on the banner there and there, you don't need to do it on the inside. What we're going to do now is we're going to take some Wazdaka Red and we're going to use this to now highlight the banner itself. And so with that done, our final thing to do is to take a little bit of pink horror and just apply this to the sharpest points. On our banner. And so with his base complete, Eternus, Blade of the First Prince, is now finished. And I don't really know what to say. I genuinely, this might be my favourite miniature of all time. Ever. It's certainly one of the best looking, and I think it's one of the best I've ever painted on the channel. I think it looks absolutely phenomenal. I'm really, really pleased with how all of it's come out. And, well, I mean, just look at it. Come on now. What an amazing, amazing miniature. I had so much fun painting this, and I hope you have as much fun painting yours. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you want to support me further like these legends and bosses on the screen before you, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Alternatively, you could become a YouTube member by heading to the channel page and clicking on the join button just here, just like these amazing, wonderful people have done. And if you really like this video or you just want to shoot me some support, you can click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.